We moved here in 1961, and I'm wearing this hat because we're also gold sponsors at the Baker Rodeo. And the rodeo's going on right now, and we'll be there again tonight. We were there yesterday. But I am Lamar White, and I'm running for school board, and this hat's a Toby Keith hat. And I don't know what you think about Toby Keith, but I like Toby Keith, and I love the song American Soldier. My father and Connie's father were both veterans. But in any case, I am running for school board. Thank you. This is my wife, Connie. Connie White, not Vanna White, Connie White. And we always try to come prepared and bring things in for folks so that when we make our remarks, it's something that we kind of planned and prepared. So here we are. I am running for school board, and I thought that you folks might want to hear from me today about why you should vote for me, why you should vote for Lamar White. And so I've written some things down, and I think these things are important. And, you know, I'm asking you for a job, and I think that I need to tell you what my qualifications are and what my experience is so that you can feel good about pulling that lever for Lamar White. First of all, I believe I have better qualifications, I have better experience, and I have better ideas than my opponent and my friend, 16-year incumbent Cindy Frakes. First of all, I'll tell you that this election is a school board election. This election's about schools, and I'll tell you that I've been at every level in the school system. I've been a teacher, I've been a coach, I've worked for you in Okaloosa County for 35 years. I can tell you that I was also a school principal for the last 26 years, earning 13 A school grades at 4 different schools. I was also principal at Ruckle here in Niceville, principal at Plew Elementary here in Niceville. I was principal at Meigs Middle School for the last 11 years, and I was also principal at a school we no longer have one time long ago called Ocean City Elementary off of Racetrack Road. Now, I'll tell you, that's a lot of different places that I've been employed, but I've never been fired. I might have been a moving target, but I wasn't ever fired. But in any case, I was proud to work for you and work for these kids and help our schools to get better. I've done every job in the school system, including driving school buses. When I was a coach back in the old days, we actually had to drive the bus, and I've done that too. I'll also tell you that I've been politically active. You know, in Florida, school board races are nonpartisan, and we're not allowed to campaign under the flag of a party banner. But we are allowed to list our involvement in political activities, and I'll tell you, if you look at my list, you'll see that I'm a member of the Republican Party, that I'm also a member of the Okaloosa County Republican Executive Committee, and I'm also a member of several Republican clubs here in Okaloosa County, Florida. I'll tell you right up front, I'm a true conservative. I'm opposed to Common Core. I think it's a misjustice to the American educational system. I'll tell you at the same time, I was also opposed to George Bush's No Child Left Behind for the same reason. I believe that both of those programs are an intrusion into local schools. I vote against those. In any case, I'll tell you this, if you'll have me, I'll work for you for 4 years, and I'll work hard. Anybody that follows our campaign, I hope you can see how hard we're working. I did the same thing when I was a school principal and I was a teacher, and I'll do the same thing if you elect me, and I'll commit to you right now, I'll work for you no more than 8 years. That's my position. 8 years will be the max I'll serve. On the back and experience, I've already told you that I've been a principal. I served as a mentor principal. I trained other principals in Okaloosa County. I was a designated master teacher in the state of Florida by test and by observation. I was an outstanding professor. I taught graduate school in the evenings. I was voted by the adult students on 2 occasions as the outstanding professor at the University of West Florida. I already told you about the 13 A+ school grades. And I'll tell you right up front, I'm a fiscal conservative. In 26 years managing, actually doing the work, not just voting, but doing the work of writing school budgets and implementing school budgets, never once did I have a school budget that ended the year in a deficit. And that's because I worked hard. I reduced administrative costs, and I moved those materials and those supplies and those resources to the classroom where I believe they ought to be. I'll tell you this, I have some ideas. I believe my ideas are better because my ideas stand for student achievement. I can give you some examples. I implemented a reading program in Okaloosa County at one middle school that later became the model for the entire school district. Every school district, every middle school in Okaloosa School District has a reading program, and I was the first one that did it, and I did it right over there at Ruckle Middle School. The other thing I'll tell you is I believe we ought to increase student instructional time. We ought to reduce the teacher paperwork. I'll lobby to change the FTE funding model. I think I've already had some effect. I'll tell you right now, last year the school board was kind of forced into voting for a tax increase. But I'll tell you, I wrote some emails and sent some letters and talked to a few people in Tallahassee. And if you'll read the new Senate bill on taxation in schools in Okaloosa County and other counties in Florida this coming year, they have said there'll be no ad valorem increases. And I worked hard for that. In any case, I want you to think about me, Lamar White, for Okaloosa County School Board. I promise I'll do a good job, and I'll be a full-time school board member. I retired from the school system in 2012, and so I can work full-time, and I'll work just as hard, and I promise you, I'll do a good job. Thank you. And this is my wife, Connie.
I'm Andi, and I'm at the Operation We the People rally here in Niceville, Florida. Sitting next to me is Dr. Lamar White. He is running for School Board District 1. Now, Dr. White, here's one question for you. Why are you actually running?
Well, Andi, thank you. I'm running because I believe I can make a difference. I am challenging a 16-year incumbent, my friend Cindy Frakes. And I believe, Andi, I have better qualifications, better experience, and better ideas.
What are some of the differences that you are wanting to make in our school system?
Well, Andi, in my opinion, there are some things that we need to change. And first of all, what I would want to do, what I think we need to do is incumbent on us, is to increase student instructional time. A lot of folks don't know that for the first time in 2013, in December, the Okaloosa County School District lost its A grade. Okaloosa County School District is now a B school district. We'd been an A school district every year since 2004, and I believe, Andi, it's because we've reduced instructional time, and I believe we need to increase it, and I know how to do that. That'll be budget neutral, and it will not cost the taxpayers a dime. The other thing that I think we need to do, Andi, is we need to reduce the paperwork burdens that have been put on our teachers. Those two things together, the loss of instructional time and the paperwork burdens that we've put on our teachers, I believe has contributed to the academic decline in Okaloosa County.
Speaking of academic decline, there's a lot of ticked off people with this new Common Core, and especially with former Governor Jeb Bush backing it and the Florida Governor Association. And here in Okaloosa County, our own school board has voted for Common Core. After reading even in other states, and parents are standing up against this, asking, what is this garbage that you are teaching our kids? Where do you stand on Common Core?
Well, thank you, Andi. When I declared that I was going to seek this position, I guess just about a year ago, I said from the beginning that I was opposed to Common Core. It's on my website, it's on my Facebook page, and I'll tell you why I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to it because I believe the federal government does not have a place in local schools. And Andi, when I say that I'm opposed to it, I want to make sure that people understand that I'm not just one-dimensional. I was also opposed to President Bush's No Child Left Behind as well for the same reasons. I don't believe the federal government should be involved in local schools. And you know something, Andi, you're exactly right, because in October of 2010, the school board did vote to approve the Race to the Top grant in Okaloosa County, which did require Common Core. It also required early release of students from schools. It required a whole host of things that increased teacher paperwork, and that 200-page grant was approved on October the 11th, 2010 by the Okaloosa County School Board. That is a local decision. That's not state law and it's not federal law. That was a local decision. You're exactly right, Andi.
If you are elected for District 1 on the school board, what is one of the first things that you are going to do?
Well, Andy, I would want to do what I've done before. On 2 occasions, I've served on paperwork reduction task force. I served on one for Superintendent Don Gates in Okaloosa County, and we made tremendous strides in actually reducing the paperwork for Okaloosa County teachers. Beyond that, I was actually appointed to the Speaker of the House in Florida, Tallahassee, to serve on the paperwork reduction task force for the state of Florida for teachers, and I worked on that task force, and we made a difference there, and that's the first thing I'd want to do, Andy, because I believe when we burden our teachers with a lot of unnecessary paperwork, we take away student instructional time.
Now, one thing that I heard you mention while I was walking around, I call it ear hustling, I tend to do that from time to time, was letting kids out of school early. Now, do you see that as a benefit to the students or more of a disadvantage?
Thank you, Andy. I have said, and I will say here again, I am opposed to early release of students from schools. You know, that's something that was started a few years ago and actually approved by the school board when they approved the Race to the Top grant that I gave you that date earlier in 2010. And that's something that people don't realize. That's a local decision. A lot of parents and a lot of people think that that's something that's required by state law. It's not. A lot of people think it's something that's required by Common Core or it's something that's required by the federal government. It's not. That is purely a local decision, and I will tell you that recently I read some research that some counties in Okaloosa, in Florida rather, some counties in Florida have already done away with this early release experiment, and in my opinion, Andy, we need to do that too. Now, what they'll tell you is that we use that time for teacher training. I'll tell you this, I one time made a part-time living doing teacher training. I believe in teacher training, but teacher training needs to be done a different way. We don't need to be taking away the educational, instructional time of students. Andy, I added up the time that we lose with early release. If you take a child in kindergarten and take those days that we do early release and go all the way from the time that they graduate high school, Andy, we took a third of a year of academic time from kids. I'm opposed to that, and I would vote against doing that.
No tolerance policy. Where do you actually stand on that now? I know that's a broad spectrum to really talk about, but with all the shootings that were going on in the schools in other states and the failed policies of no tolerance, saying that teachers can't protect themselves, and now we have to pay for SROs or have volunteers into our school system, and even kids are now being suspended because they're eating Pop-Tarts in the shape of a gun, or they're being expelled from school. Where do you stand on that?
Well, Andy, I'll tell you where I stand. In the first place I would look would be to my record as a school principal. I worked as a principal in Okaloosa County schools for 26 years. And I'll tell you, and I'd like to think that the teachers and the parents that I work with would verify this, I believe I was a strong disciplinarian. I believe that if you don't have proper behavior in schools, you will not have any learning. And so I do believe in strong discipline in our schools. As far as the no tolerance policy that you're speaking of, I think what's so important, and unfortunately, and I read the news reports just like you do, Andy, unfortunately what's missing is some common sense. Kids don't need to be suspended because they made a Pop-Tart gun, okay? And I'd like to say, and I know this for a fact, that the principals I've worked with in Okaloosa County do tend to practice common sense. And in fact, beyond that, they tend to look at the child's behavior in total. It wouldn't just be an isolated incidence of Pop-Tart gun making. It would be something that a lot of things that had occurred that would cause them to make a suspension for something like that. But generally, I will tell you this. I had a friend ask me one time, hey, I'm against that no tolerance policy, you know, kids getting in trouble and getting expelled. And I said, well, Tom, didn't you know we changed it? Everybody's allowed to bring a gun or drugs one time. Well, he didn't like that answer, but he understood what I was saying. There are some things, Andy, that we have to have a no-tolerance policy for, and guns and drugs, that's one of them.
So teachers shouldn't be allowed to conceal and carry at any of the schools?
Well, now, Andy, I have said that I'm a conservative, and I'm a member of the NRA, and I'm also a licensed carrier. But And I do know that there's some legislation being considered in Tallahassee that would allow faculty members to be armed. I think that that's something we have to be very, very cautious of. I can tell you one of the best things that ever happened, as far as I'm concerned as a principal, is when we let resource officers work in our schools. You know, I was a principal so long ago that we didn't have resource officers. And the day that we put resource officers into schools, sheriff's deputies, was a huge benefit to the children, the teachers in Okaloosa County. So I support that. I do think that we've kind of messed up in one respect. When we say publicly that schools or anywhere else for that matter is a gun-free zone, I'm afraid we've kind of opened ourselves up to all the people that now they know that it's a gun-free zone. I think a better approach might be just not to say it. If that's the choice the school makes, that's fine. But to say that we're it's all you can eat at Howard Johnson, so to speak, I don't think that's what we want to be doing. And I think that the kind of strategies that airports use, where there are sky marshals that are unknown, not in uniform, I think that might be advisable. But when you have a law that says schools are gun-free zones, I just don't think that's very smart, Andy.
Well, just to piggyback on that, and then we'll get to the final question before we get out here for a break, is if you couldn't meet any ground with concealed carry for any teacher in the school, especially with all these shootings going around, at one point, would there be any hope for common ground, saying that now that students who are in universities can actually carry a weapon and put it in their trunk and carry it to campus? So I would think that a common ground measure would be, well, we won't allow you to conceal and carry, but we'll allow you to carry it in your trunk. Would you oppose that?
Now, you know, we're really getting on some fine legal ground here, and I'm certainly not an attorney, and I'd have to defer to one of the legal experts to share with us if, in fact, what you're suggesting might already be provided for in law. It might already be provided for in law, but that would be someone that has a lot more experience in legal matters than I do to answer. But again, I think, Andy, we are remiss if we say that schools are, quote, gun-free, because when we've done that, we've kind of exposed ourselves, just in my opinion. And I think that's what you're seeing happening around the country.
All right, final question. Bullying. Do you think that any of the tactics that they have put in place in the schools have actually worked for bullying?
I think the answer to that is yes. I think sometimes it's hard for us to measure what kind of deterrent effect it's really had, because the things that don't happen, well, we don't know about them because we put these things into place. It's kind of like, you know, is capital punishment a deterrent to murder? Well, how do we really know? Because we don't know about the murders that didn't happen, because it was in fact a law, capital punishment. But what I would say is that yes, I think they've made a difference. I don't know that necessarily we've gone far enough. But again, what I would say, Andy, you know, this election is about a District 1 school board seat. In my experience as a principal, I'd like for you to take a look at that, the taxpayers and the voters to look at my experience there, and I think you'll find that I was a strong disciplinarian.
All right, Dr. Lamar White. I had to actually look at your shirt. I'm not afraid to admit it on TV. Dr. Lamar White, running for Okaloosa County School Board, District 1. Any final thoughts before we cut out for the break?
Just to say to you that I believe that I'm the most qualified, I have the most experience, and I've been at every level in the school system. I worked as a teacher, a principal, a coach, and I even drove a bus. I worked for you guys for 35 years, and I've lived here since 1961. I'm married to my beautiful Connie, who's holding my sign over there for many, many years now, I think 44 years. So please think about voting for me in August, and let me say that if you vote for me and elect me, I'll work very, very hard.
All right. Dr. Lamar White, Okaloosa County School Board, District 1. We're going to get out for a break. Next guest coming up.